This guy has autism, and he left a comment under my video, 5 reasons women don't want men with mental health issues, where I talk about, again, as a guy, I mention the reasons, and I say, if you're a guy that has various mental issues, try to get them as rightened as you possibly can, whether it's getting a medication, therapy, whatever, because you want to be in the best shape you possibly can for the condition that you have before you ask somebody else out, right? So this guy said, so if I have autism, should I forget about getting a girlfriend? And then my response to him was, I said, I don't know the specifics of your autism or how it shows itself, and I would never lie and tell you it wouldn't be difficult. But also, plenty of people with autism find mates. I said, off the top of my head, Amy Schumer's husband has autism. I said, so it's not impossible. But to my point in the video, you would need to have done the serious work of getting whatever issues it's caused you under control as best you can. So then he responded back. He said, thanks, Harry. I do have a childhood friend who is on the spectrum, who is married, and I read success stories like Amy Schumer's husband. Would it be best said that if one is high functioning enough to effectively manage the social impediments of autism, thus striving to make it an asset instead of a burdensome liability? He then says, I'm 34. I was diagnosed when I was 6, and I'm gainfully employed as an urban planner. I own a house, and I have a lot of great hobbies. I haven't yet had a girlfriend because my biggest thing is an intense fear of rejection because of being bullied when I was younger. He said, I still need to overcome my fear of rejection before I can ask a woman out. Read about rejection sensitive dysphoria and how it impacts people with autism and ADHD. For people who don't have an intense sensitivity to rejection, rejection is a hiccup. For those who are more sensitive, rejection is a heart attack. There's just so much content on the internet that is so brutal about people with autism, even those who are high functioning, like impediments in education, employment, and romantic relationships. So to his point, I did actually look up rejection sensitive dysphoria because I was like, you know what? If I'm going to talk about it, I want to be knowledgeable of it. All right. So I'll give the short description here. It says rejection sensitive dysphoria is when you experience severe emotional pain because of a failure or feeling rejected. This condition is linked to ADHD, and experts suspect it happens due to differences in brain structure. Those differences mean your brain can't regulate rejection-related emotions and behaviors, making them much more intense. Then he goes into a more deeper description. It says, while rejection is something people usually don't like, the negative feelings that come with RSD are stronger and can be harder to manage, or both. People with RSD are also more likely to interpret vague interactions as rejection and may find it difficult to control their reactions. People with RSD often show the following traits and behaviors. It's very easy for them to feel embarrassed or self-conscious. They show signs of low self-esteem and trouble believing in themselves. They have trouble containing emotions when they feel rejected. This is often noticeable in children and teenagers with this condition. Some may react with sudden shows of anger or rage, while others may burst into tears. It says instead of losing control of their emotions outwardly, some people with RSD may turn their feelings inward. This can look like a snap onset of severe depression, and sometimes it's mistaken for sudden emotional shifts that can happen with bipolar disorder or borderline personality disorder. It says they're often people pleasers and become intensely focused on avoiding the disapproval of others. They may avoid starting projects, tasks, or goals when there's a chance of failure. And they compensate for their fear of failure or rejection by going all out or striving for perfectionism. However, the downside of this is that they often experience intense anxiety and may not easily make self-care or downtime a priority. Going back to this guy's question about that, right? So he says he has this rejection-sensitive dysphoria, right? So here's my thing. First of all, I'm not a doctor. I don't want to diagnose anything, or I don't want to have this feel like this is any kind of professional advice, all right? Because I don't have ADHD, and I don't think I do, and I don't have autism or anything like that. So I can't speak for what this guy's personal journey is in reference to what he's going through or experienced, okay? I can touch on a few things he mentioned, though. So for starters, to the point, nobody is really a fan of rejection. And as we're growing up, I think that the ways in which we're taught to handle rejection can greatly influence and impact how we date. Now, again, this is a little more extreme for people with autism based on what this guy is saying. I remember my first instance of telling a woman, or a woman finding out that I liked her, right? I was 5 years old. There was a woman named, I talk about this in my book, No Girls for You, The Ultimate Guide to Losing the Girl of Your Dreams. I talk about this story. And by the way, you can get that book by going to my website and clicking on the products tab. You can also get the album that goes with that, which features my buddy Nan Wan. But anyway, so I told this girl was, her name was Melody, and I had a crush on her. And I told my brother and my best friend Tasha at the time that I thought she was really, really pretty. And there would be times, she lived in my neighborhood, so there would be times when like we'd hang out and ride bikes and it was all good. And then one day I got on the bus to go to school and I sat behind Melody on the bus. And I said, "Hey Melody, how you doing?" And she turns to me and she's like, "I know you have a crush on me." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "No, I don't." And she's like, "No, I know you have a crush on me. You have a crush on me. You have a crush on me." And it was like a scene out of a movie. All the kids on the bus started laughing at me. It was the first time I ever had a girl know that I liked her. And the response was getting laughed at, getting rejected, getting ridiculed by other kids on the bus. And that turned me off from letting any woman know I liked her for the next like almost 10 to 12 years. Real talk. All right. And so to his point, like the rejection of getting rejected by women didn't get any easier, like really until like my later college days. I was finally able to lose my virginity, but also get to the point where it's like, if a woman knew that I liked her, it was okay. And that I could do other moves that let her know that I liked her and they'd be open to them versus like, if I do a move, they're going to think, "What are you doing? You're just Harry. I don't want to be, we're just friends. I don't want to, date you." And then being scared off. Right. But that took a long freaking time. So to the point, so for one, like, yes, people with autism, like he said, rejection feels like a hiccup for those that haven't, that he said, for people who don't have an insensitive sensitivity, who don't have an intense sensitivity to rejection is a hiccup. Most people for a good portion of their age growing up have an intense sensitivity to rejection. Like I've talked to plenty of men that do not have any kind of mental disorder or any kind of mental health issue whatsoever that are in their 20s, 30s, 40s that are still like, "I want to approach her, but like, what if she's going to think of me? Or what if she thinks I'm dumb or a moron?" Like that's still a thing for people that don't have mental health issues. Okay. So that's the first thing. All right. And this isn't trying to discount that it may feel more intense for you. All right. But here's the other thing too, because he mentions that rejection, it can feel like a punch in the gut and that it causes people with autism to want to hold back because the biggest fear is rejection. Right. So if we're going along the feeling of rejection, the feeling of rejection is a fear that people with autism have. Then my question would be, but could the things that you consider a rejection be selective? Because in this paragraph, he talks about how he's gainfully employed as an urban planner and how he owns a house and he has hobbies, right? So to be an urban planner, that takes, I imagine, years of training to get to. There were some points along that journey where you were trying to take a certain class or trying to talk to certain people or trying to get certain projects where you got rejected. Was your reaction excessively strong when you got those rejections? Trying to get a house. You might find a house and you really, really want it, but then somebody comes in last minute and bids on it and gets it before you. So you got rejected for your offer for that house. In those moments, did the rejection feel so intense that you felt like you were having a heart attack? If you did, then I totally get it. And hey, that's just every time you got rejected ever in life, then you always going to have that feeling. But what I'm trying to point out is that in some of those cases, it's like if the rejection was already expected, but you recognize that the rejection is part of the process of getting to your ultimate goal, then you didn't see the rejection as an end all be all. You saw the rejection as part of the process of getting to what you wanted. And therefore that rejection was necessary in order to finally get the desired outcome, right? So what I'm saying to that is that if you're able to react in a, we'll say, I don't want to use the term, but like in a more proper way, if you're able to act to certain rejections in a more proper way, where it's like, okay, you didn't get the project you wanted, you didn't get the house you wanted, maybe you were trying to do a hobby and like you got rejected for initially on when you were trying to do that hobby at first and you weren't the best at it. Like, how did you react in those moments? If you were able to react calmly in those moments, and that means that your rejection process or what you're considering a rejection could be selective, which is actually a great thing, because could you then possibly transfer the idea that if I get rejected by a woman, it's the worst thing ever, and I'm going to have the heart attack feeling, to, in order to get a woman of some kind to date me, I need to get X amount of rejections as part of the process to eventually get what I want. Because that's, again, as a person that doesn't have this, but was horrible with women and was very, very nervous about approaching women, about approaching them in person or approaching them online, my brain eventually got to, okay, let's reverse this. Instead of saying like, I'm so afraid I'm going to get rejected, what if I had the thought of like, you know what? Today I need to go out there and get 20 rejections to be able to get 2 dates. So as long as I'm going out there, I already anticipate that I'm going to get no's to this, but that ultimately I'm going to have success by going through those rejections. So now rejection is part of the success process. So when I go out there now, I'm going to go up to the first woman fully expecting, I'm going to fully expect this woman's going to reject me, but I'm not trying to get that first woman. I'm trying to get the 20th woman. And I know somewhere along this process, if I'm just asking and going to people, whatever, that one of these women are going to be one of those 20. And what I found when I did that, like I did that in college, right? When I was starting to want to expand my dating mojo, I was like, okay, you know what? Harry, you've been going too long without getting dates. You're scared as freak that these women are going to reject you. So do this. You have women friends that you already know are probably going to say no to a date, right? Because they're your friends. They're going to feel awkward. But you know what? Go up to like the next 5 women friends of yours and ask them on a date. Just say, hey, I'm trying to get more dating practice in, and I'd love to take you out. Just do that and see what happens. So I asked the first girl, and she says, I'm not going to do it. Okay, wait. The next 3 women I asked out, fully expecting they're going to think this is a stupid plan. This is dumb. I asked 3 women in a row back to back for dates, and they all said yes. But I went in, because I went in expecting them to say no, I didn't have this anxiety of like, but they're going to say no, it's the worst thing. I was like, no, I fully expect them to say no. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to get the no, be like, great, check off, get up to the next one, because inevitably I'm going to get a yes. And I got 3 yeses in a row. So that taught me that I can't be so afraid of rejection because it's part of the process to getting success with women. So consider that. Like, again, I'm not a medical doctor or professional, so I can't really see if that's going to work or not, but try that. Try saying, let me add rejection to part of the success process and know that when I go out there, I need to get 18 rejections to get 2 yeses, and I'm willing to find where those yeses are and see if that helps you. Now, if it doesn't, I've given you no advice here and go talk to a professional, but I just want you to think about it differently so your brain will react differently, and hopefully that'll be a technique that helps. I don't know if it will, but try that out and see if it works.
You need to call her on her cell phone.